Hello, in this video, I would like to show you how to calculate revenue growth rate as well as revenue forecast for next 10 years based on my revenue growth rates using simulation. Okay, so let's calculate revenue growth rate first. Go to income statement and you can see total revenue here. I will go back to my, let's title this as revenue growth rate. And you cannot calculate revenue growth rate unless you have a previous year data. In this case, I will skip 1988 and I will calculate from 1989. Open your parentheses, 1989 data minus previous year divided by previous year. So if you want to show as a percentage, click on that number that we just calculated. Under Home tab, you can click on percent. So it looks like Apple increased its revenue by 30% from 1988 to 1989. Right down corner, when you see this black cross, you can drag it all the way to the right. Okay, so now I don't find appropriate to use year 2020 data because it's not complete yet. This is the third quarter data, and I haven't, as of now, they haven't released the fourth quarter data. You can see they release that data every September. So that's why I will delete the last one. All right. So now I would like to visualize my revenue growth to see what's going on. I highlight those by clicking on the first cell, Control Shift left arrow, and then Insert, Scatter, and I will choose here Scatter with smooth lines and markers. Now you can see that this is the data, right? So I will just put it at the top so you can clearly see that. And at the beginning, you can see that the revenue growth rate was around 20–30%. And then Apple had struggled a little bit in 1990s. And then Apple launched iPad, iPod, iPhone, and so on. Their revenue growth rate was crazy, 60, 70%, 30%, and so on. But you can see that most recent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, in 6, 7 years, their revenue growth rate never exceeded above 28%. So I would like to put a cap and I create a distribution for this. And also you can see that revenue growth never went down below -33%. I will put that as an minimum decrease in revenue as well. So again, this is my story. I think those are reasonable assumptions. However, create your own story, whatever you think is reasonable. So what I'm going to do is I will use all this data to be able to fit the distribution, but I will put a cap of 28% because I think that that's a reasonable assumption considering the size of Apple right now. And I will put bottom floor of -33%. Some people may say, hey, I'm not going to use all data, but then you need to download quarterly data from Capital IQ, and I respect that. But you need to have at least 15 data points to be able to do the distribution in crystal ball. That means that if you are using yearly data, you need to use at least 15 years of data. If you are using quarterly data, you need to use at least 15 quarters or almost 4 years of data. I'm using annual data to make my life easier. And I will use all the data and again, put a floor of 28%, so floor of -33% and ceiling of +28% for revenue growth rate. That's my story. All right. I go back to intrinsic value. The base year revenue growth rate, again, this is probably not the best assumption, but since I don't have 2020 year full data, I will use 2019, which is the most recent growth rate data that I have, which is -2%. I will find that and click on -2% and press enter. Now I will click on the year 2021 revenue growth rate, which is C13. Crystal ball, and then I will define the assumption, fit distribution to data, and then I will click on this little icon to highlight my data, and I will go to my income statement. Again, I will click on my -2%, highlight all the way to the left, which is +30%. Before click OK, make sure that you press F4, and F4 will basically lock your numbers. Because when we copy the cells, you don't want the formulas to be copied as well. So you see dollar signs are going to lock the cells. Click OK. Now what I'm going to do is I will choose all continuous distributions because I know the percentages are continuous. I will let Crystal Ball decide between these three different goodness of fit tests and click OK. Now some distributions obviously did not fit to my data. Click OK. According to Crystal Ball, the best distribution is logistic distribution. You can see the shape of the logistic distribution by this green line. And you can see my historical data with these bars. And statistically speaking, my p-value is 0.5, which is greater than the threshold of 0.05. That's thumbs up. That means that I don't have enough evidence to reject null hypotheses that the real data and the distribution that is fit here are the same. So that means that I can use this logistic distribution. If you don't find any distribution here for your company fitting, in other words, if you don't find any p-values greater than 0.05 and you do this analysis, basically what you can do is, I will show in a different video, empirical distribution, basically assuming that you will only use historical data with equal probabilities. In this case, I will feel confident to use logistic distribution. Click accept. But as I told you, I would like to, as you see here, logistic distribution go all the way to negative infinity and positive infinity pretty much. But I don't think that is possible. So I would like to just truncate my distribution. You can click on this little arrow right here, show more, and then that will show these two areas. So let's put a, click on this little icon right here to put a ceiling for the revenue growth rate. And I will go back to my income statement. Again, this is my story, and I think that it's fair to assume that revenue of Apple won't decrease in a given year more than 33%, which happened in, let me just find that data point right here. Right here, which happened in year 2001, .com bubble. Again, if you don't like that assumption, please make your own assumption. Make sure that these are locked. You see dollar cells, that means they're locked. Okay, click OK. And I will do the same thing for my ceiling assumption that I will go back to my income statement. I will assume that it will not go above next 10 years per year basis more than 28% because Apple is a big company now. I'll click on 28%. Make sure I press F4 to lock my cell. One more time. I will delete this and then click on 28% right here, which happened in 2015. And then you can see, you can press F4 to lock your cell. Click OK. Okay. And then now I can click Enter, and this is the shape of my distribution. You can see that it's much different distribution right now than before when I truncated. All right. So let's see what this little icon does. Okay. So now I will click Enter and then click OK. So now you can see my distribution right here. So if I try to copy this, you cannot Control-C, Control-V. You need to go on the crystal ball and then copy, and then you highlight your cells that you want to copy to, and then again crystal ball paste. Now you can see that I copied and pasted these numbers. Under Home tab, I can click on the percentage. If your numbers don't show like 6.4%, if you're using exact same data, don't freak out. You may see gets only 0. Basically, what happened is that for you, you need to change the settings. What you can do is just click on one of those green cells, which shows assumptions in Crystal Ball. Right-click, and then here, Crystal Ball, and then Cell Preferences. And here you can change the color or pattern if you want to. And I like to add comment to my cell and set cell value distribution of mean. However, again, this will slow down your computer if you have way too many assumptions, like thousands of them. this case, I don't, so I don't mind. So that's why I click apply to here, and then apply all tabs and all open and new workbooks. Click OK, and you see that you can see comment of logistic distribution, scale parameter, and the average here. So now I need to also decide on the growth rate for this company after year 2030. So that's an important assumption to make. Assuming that U.S. inflation target is 2% by Fed, again, this can change if you are watching this video for decades from now. It can be completely different. I think based on historical data, it is very fair to assume that U.S. economy will grow around 2.5%. So I will assume that once Apple reaching equilibrium after 10 years of growth of 6% on average, I think it cannot grow more than 2.5%, which is the economic growth rate for the United States, which Apple is mainly in the United States. If you think that your company is more like a global company, which Apple is, you may assume that this is a little bit bigger. But again, this is your story, make your assumption. But I think Apple, 10 years from now, perpetual growth of 2.5% is pretty common and good assumption. Now, based on this revenue growth forecast, I can make my revenue forecast. To be able to do that, I need to find my most recent year revenue, which is, if you go back to your income statement and total revenue at the very end, 2020, most recent data is, let's go right here, $273 billion. I will use that as a base year. Click dollar. I don't need all those decimals for this. That's okay. So now you can make your forecast based on that base year. Basically, base year times 1 plus the revenue growth rate. But again, although this looks like a fixed number, when I run my simulation, this number will change because it's a random number. It's not just a number, it's a random number that will change based on the distribution that we define. All right, so then enter. I will copy the format here, format painter, and then paste it right here. And I just do it by going between two letters, and you see the symbol, double click. And then right down corner, when you see the black cross, drag it all the way. All right, as you see, you cannot see numbers. Click on top left corner to select the entire worksheet. Go between any two letters. You see this symbol, double click, that will adjust the width. So now you can see that on average, I'm forecasting the revenue of Apple to almost double up to $521 billion. Like Walmart right now is around $500+ billion. And I think that's a good assumption. Again, that number will change based on the random numbers that we generate. That's it for this video. I would like to recap quickly though. What we did is calculate revenue growth rate, which is a random number based on distribution fitting. I used Anderson-Darling. You use the p-value of 0.05, and I found a distribution that fits with my data. Now, based on that, I calculate the revenue. That's it for this video. Until next video, enjoy valuations.